the Salulita group is paying somebody to accompany people to make these formal ministerial reports so that they can get considered in the statistics. And with these statistics, the Mexican authorities can solicit more resources to combat crime and maybe facilitate the reporting in itself. So that's along the security lines. Does anybody have any questions? Or
Could I ask you one very specific one, maybe get it rolling? Have there been any Americans or Canadians killed in your area of responsibility in relation to the drug problems?
Okay, I can't get extremely specific, but what I can tell you is that I have, in the last 15 months, have one reported execution of an American citizen who they have not yet determined why he was executed. However, it was a person who came from the United States that is actually a dual national, and this particular person had felony, he was a felon, he had gotten out of jail and came to Mexico, and I am presuming that he got hooked up with the wrong kind of folks.
There probably wasn't an AARP member, though.
Definitely not an AARP member. No, and in that particular case, in that the American case, it took us 3 or 4 days to identify him because he was using different identities, and his concubine thought he was somebody else. So, having said that,
Well, that was the one.
that's the one American that was executed within the last 15 months. There were 2 Canadians also executed, and supposedly in Vallarta. First of all, the American was in Nayarit, in a small town in the hills. Okay, the Canadian gentlemen were executed right in Vallarta, near Villas Vallarta, and they too have a questionable history of, not the Canadian AARP or CAARP folks either. Well, that's what the story is. I'm not the expert on that, but
Montreal Mafia connection, perhaps, to the Canadian cases.
do we have incidents of tourists getting caught in crossfires or anything of that incident? No. In fact, if any of you look at the State Department travel information and travel warnings, Puerto Vallarta is not mentioned at all because we do not have any significant events which have affected American residents, full-time residents, or tourists that appear to be a trend. Okay? They analyze that. Yes, there were delinquents playing with a grenade in a local bar, and that resulted in an explosion and many young kids injured and a few even dying. None of it is good, but none of these incidents have directly affected anybody who has come here on vacation or just passing through, or even local residents. Now, is there a chance that Americans are not reporting incidents they've seen? That's also a possibility. Yes, sir.
I have a question, if I may. Recently, I saw an American Chamber of Commerce article where it mentioned several cities in the U.S. where the murder rate was actually higher than in Ciudad Juarez. Did you comment on that?
No, I didn't read the article. I wouldn't, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. Washington DC has a very, very high homicide rate, and there are many U.S. cities. It depends on, I personally wouldn't go to Ciudad Juarez. Ciudad Juarez has been a problem for many, many years, even before that. But no, I think that personally, this is not an official government comment, but I think that your risk factor depends on the activities that you're participating in, okay? And if, as long as you guys can, you know, stay away from drugs and the prostitution and the strip clubs and things like that, you probably have less, well, if you get out of the strip clubs early, you have less risks, okay? So, well, you know what? The last few issues we've had have always been after 3 a.m. So.
Other questions?
You know, one of the biggest issues, really, one of the issues with American citizens that has been recently is precisely that. Guys who go over to strip clubs or lingerie clubs or whatever they're not, and they can't pay their bills, and they end up in jail. And it's like, how did that get up to 5,000 pesos in a half hour? It's like, I don't know, sir, I wasn't there. That's your bill. So, there you go.
Kelly said that she mentioned several things when she visited a year or so ago, but there are 6 or 8 new faces in the room. So it might be helpful if you mention your 2 or 3 core jobs that take most of your time.
Okay, the American Consular Agency is an emergency American citizen services post. How many of you are American citizens here? Could you just, the majority. God bless America. And what we do is we basically help Americans in distress. And when a loved one has passed away or died here, we help guide family members through sometimes the quagmire of Mexican procedures, and we try to facilitate. If somebody is incarcerated, not detained because of a bar bill they didn't pay, but if somebody is incarcerated and arrested and they go to the penitentiary, we make sure their human rights are not violated. We take vitamins, books, and sometimes we facilitate communications with family. Hospitalization, if somebody is very ill, we help them find the proper health care. And in this case in Mexico, what they can afford, whether it's private or going to the public sector for poor people. And also we assist indigent or destitute Americans who all of a sudden end up in Puerto Vallarta and want to get back home for one reason or the other. And we do emergency passports. You may find it interesting to know that in my office alone last year, we processed over 950 passport applications during the year. We had approximately 100 deaths of American citizens. All either accidents or a lot of natural deaths that